He smiles at every meeting. He praises you in front of the whole team. Just last week, he asked about your family. Then, 3 weeks ago, you overheard something you were never meant to hear. It was a brief conversation, almost accidental, and somehow your name came up when it never should have. From that moment forward, there's a small imbalance between what you know and what the other person believes you know. That imbalance is the single greatest strategic advantage you'll ever have in your career. Most people waste it within 24 hours. They confront the person. They lose their temper. They send the text they instantly regret. And in that very moment, the person who betrayed them wins, because they've spent weeks preparing for exactly that reaction. The answer is to do the exact opposite. This is about how to neutralize a disloyal coworker without saying a single word, without losing your composure, and without giving anyone, not even them, a reason to accuse you of anything. Because corporate revenge isn't something you do, it's a position you hold. If any of this feels familiar, stay with me. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like, because what you're about to hear is the strategic perspective you need if you want to stop navigating your workplace blindly. It may feel personal, but it isn't. The coworker who talks behind your back isn't driven by hatred. They're driven by calculation, and that one detail changes your entire strategy. The moment you realize this isn't an emotional attack, but a political move, you stop reacting with your emotions and start responding with strategy. That distinction may sound simple, but it's what separates the people who survive office politics from the ones who get swallowed by them. Most people believe the right response to betrayal is direct confrontation. It feels like justice. It feels like self-respect. But it's exactly the mistake the betrayer is hoping you'll make. A backstabber thrives on ambiguity. They feed on uncertainty, on rumors without a source, on words that no one can prove were ever said. The moment you confront them, you hand them the one thing they didn't have before, a concrete fact they can use against you. In many corporate environments, the person making accusations without documented evidence risks looking like the aggressor, while the one accused without proof often comes across as calm and reasonable. It's not an absolute rule, but it's a pattern that plays out again and again in the way workplace conflicts are judged. As Robert Greene wrote, "Keep your hands clean. Real power doesn't come from raising your voice. It comes from remaining untouchable while the other person slowly wears themselves out." Before you make a single move, you need to do what almost no one does. Quietly assess the real damage. What exactly was said? Who heard it? And what impact did that conversation have on the perception of the people who actually matter? Not every act of betrayal carries the same weight. Some people gossip simply because they want to feel included. Others are calculated saboteurs who slowly and deliberately build a negative image of you to strengthen their own position. Confusing one with the other is the second major mistake. Imagine this. During your weekly team meeting, your manager casually mentions that a certain project needs closer oversight. On the surface, the comment seems harmless. But if you hear it 2 weeks after that coworker casually questioned your performance, it no longer feels random. It becomes a clue. Now, imagine something as simple as showing up 5 minutes late to a meeting. On any ordinary day, nobody notices. But if someone has already planted doubts about your commitment, that exact same delay suddenly means something completely different. The event hasn't changed. The story surrounding it had. That's because a single negative impression has a tendency to contaminate people's overall perception of someone, even in areas completely unrelated to the original criticism. That's exactly the mechanism a strategic saboteur tries to activate against you, planting one small seed of doubt and letting it grow on its own. There's another psychological phenomenon at work here: confirmation bias. It's our natural tendency to look for evidence that supports what we already believe about someone. If your manager has already heard something negative about you, every small mistake you make afterward will be filtered through that original suspicion. Even though under different circumstances, it might have gone completely unnoticed. That's why impulsive reactions are so dangerous. The moment you respond with visible anger, you give everyone watching, whether it's your boss or your coworkers, the exact image that confirms what the betrayer quietly suggested all along. Deliberate silence, on the other hand, gives them nothing to work with. This is where most people lose control of their own reputation simply because they fail to create a record. This isn't about paranoia. It's about naturally documenting your own version of events. Think about the follow-up email you send after an important meeting that says, "Just to make sure we're all on the same page," or the message confirming a verbal agreement, or the calendar invitation with a clear agenda before a sensitive conversation. None of those actions look defensive. They simply make you look professional. There's a well-documented phenomenon in performance evaluations called recency bias, the tendency to give more weight to recent events than to long-term consistency. An email with a timestamp, context, and a clear paper trail sent at exactly the right moment becomes an anchor against that bias when other people's memories begin to blur. The day your coworker's version of events collides with yours, your version will come with dates, timestamps, and context. And in any corporate dispute, that's worth far more than outrage. You thought your only defense was speaking louder than they did, but the strongest defense is selective transparency. This is the core of the entire strategy. It's not about shutting them out or suddenly changing the way you behave. It's about quietly stopping the flow of sensitive information while remaining exactly as cordial as you've always been. You're still approachable. You're still friendly. You're still present. What changes is where your most important conversations happen. Major decisions, strategic plans, and your genuine concerns about work begin moving through different channels and involving different people. For example, if you used to share your progress through casual hallway conversations, you now communicate those updates directly to your manager in writing. You don't visibly exclude anyone. You simply stop relying on intermediaries. An abrupt change raises eyebrows. It signals insecurity and invites suspicion. A gradual shift does the opposite. It protects you because no one can point to the exact moment you stopped trusting them. As sociologist Irving Goffman explained, the public performance stays exactly the same. Only the stage where the important conversations happen has changed. There's another concept that matters here: the psychological contract, the unwritten expectations that shape every professional relationship. Trust, loyalty, mutual respect. The moment someone betrays that unspoken agreement, the contract is already broken long before anyone ever sits down for a formal conversation. Recognizing that silent break is what allows you to protect yourself before the damage spreads. At first, it may seem like the safest response is to quietly withdraw. It isn't. The strongest protection is building allies before you ever need them. A betrayer gains influence whenever they control the conversation about you in rooms where you aren't present. The smart response isn't talking badly about them. That would place you on exactly the same level. The smart response is strengthening your positive reputation in the very circles where they're trying to weaken it. The French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu called this social capital, and it functions like a silent shield. 3 practical moves support this strategy. Maintain consistent visibility with the people who make decisions. Create opportunities to help others in ways that are remembered and naturally documented. And build the reputation of someone who never speaks badly about anyone. Once people see you that way, any future accusation against you immediately feels out of character. Here's a practical example. Imagine you're sitting in a team meeting. Before anyone else has the chance, you publicly recognize another colleague's contribution. You're doing more than creating goodwill. You're building a reputation for fairness that will quietly work in your favor if someone ever tries to question your character. Then comes the final stage, the most uncomfortable one for them, and the most liberating one for you, letting them reveal who they really are. People who betray others almost always escalate when they don't get the reaction they expected. And here's what very few people anticipate. Silence doesn't calm a strategic saboteur. It unsettles them. They begin wondering what you know, what you've figured out, who you've talked to, and what you're planning next. That uncertainty becomes far heavier than any confrontation ever could. Eventually, it pushes them into making mistakes. Mistakes made in the wrong place, at the wrong time, and in front of the wrong people. Meetings with written minutes, group decisions where everyone is present, seemingly innocent questions that force them to commit to a position publicly. And the day they decide to attack in front of the wrong audience, you won't have to say a single word. There's one final point that needs to be absolutely clear. Never sabotage them in return. Don't recruit gossip to defend yourself. Don't manipulate the facts. And don't lie. Not even if you think it will speed things up. Every weapon you choose to use eventually teaches your opponent how to use that same weapon against you. In the process, you risk contaminating the one asset that's truly at stake throughout this entire conflict: your reputation. Real victory comes when they destroy their own credibility through their own actions, while yours continues growing stronger, one professional decision at a time. Corporate revenge isn't something you do, it's a position you hold. And that position rests on four simple words you should repeat to yourself every time you're tempted to react impulsively: observe, document, protect, wait. The betrayer loses the moment they no longer know what you're thinking, and you win the moment you no longer need them to lose. If you found this valuable, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like. Now, I'd like to hear from you in the comments. Tell me what you did when you discovered someone had betrayed your trust at work, or share the biggest mistake you made before you learned how to handle a situation like this.